Who's this fake fan hosting our podcast?
Hello and welcome to Vassals of Kingsgrave. Today we're doing DragonCast, and we're going on episode 7, Driftmark of House of the Dragon. My name is Casey. I'm known as Blue-Eyed Queen on the Discord and on all of the internets and the forums if they're still working out there. I haven't checked them out recently, but I'm sure they're there. And let's get started. So I'm going to start by going through everybody and asking for, obviously who you are and what you thought of the episode. And let's do some lemon cake ratings. So I'm going to start with Adam.
All right, hot fire. I'm going first. Okay. It's Adam, also known as Jon Snow on the things forum. Forum is still there. What does Damon never die? I'm going to say 5 out of 5. I mean, this is probably my favorite episode so far this season. And we've had a couple of good episodes, but it's just like everything's happening, y'all. It's happening. Like, it's here. This is the stuff we wanted to see. Reveals from stuff that we didn't quite know from the book. They've given us details. They're being faithful to a lot of the source material. We get the freaking Aemon's a little shit, but claiming that dragon was like Electring. I love this episode.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Let's go with Bing next.
Hey, this is Bing. Once upon a Shoeshiner, etc. Let's see. I'm wearing green. You know what? I like to come out with my full allegiance to Queen Alicent.
Ooh.
And Prince Aegon, Prince Aemon. Fuck the blacks. Oh, nice. Sorry. No.
This is a huge moment. I'm sorry.
I was like, ooh, this is gonna be good.
I always knew Bing was a green stan.
No, like this is in response to a lot of response I saw from the internet about this episode, in which apparently all of a sudden everybody is either black or green. Which I thought the point. I mean, I think that shows the show is doing a great job. It's making everybody actually side with either the blacks or the greens. So it's getting people emotionally invested. And we'll see how they feel about whatever their allegiances they pledge to in a few seasons. But anyways, I think this episode is awesome. I think
modern day Edward and Jacob, if you will.
I see. Yeah, you see. you get it. You get it, Jucio. But yeah, no, I think it's either 4.7, 5 to 5. It's a really good episode. Maybe the pacing is still a bit too fast for certain people. And I get that, but no, this is fun.
Awesome. All right. Katie?
If I were going by pure story, I would give it a 5 out of 5. But it breaks my heart to do this. If I'm going on like the experience and the look of the episode, I'll have to give it a 2. Because, like, y'all, I fixed my TV, my settings were correct. And I'm sure there were very understandable production reasons why they did a day for night scene, but like there are 2 huge important, like really emotionally riveting scenes in this episode that just to me look like mud. It's not that they were dark, like the colors were just flat, and it kind of broke my heart. I was like, these would be great to watch if I didn't have to squint to see Matt Smith's expression or where Vhagar ends in the sky begins. So yeah, it actually, this is like the universe is punishing me because I didn't give a shit when The Long Night was like super difficult to see, but now that I'm super invested in House of the Dragon, like this actually pissed me off all day thinking about it. It actually kind of like depleted my energy and enthusiasm for this episode. Even though I did watch it several times because it's quite good. It's frustrating to see something that is doing so well just like poison itself, like ruined really good material with bad, I don't even know what to call it, after effects.
Yeah, no, I also had a little bit of an issue with the lighting and squinting as well, but I'll get to that later. GSDG, I don't know your real name because I am terrible with names, but it's your turn next.
That's okay. I'd say like a 4. Hit all the story beats we expected. I was not bothered by the lighting issues in the previous episodes, but I think everybody got hit with the lighting. It is interesting because I watched the behind the scenes featurette of like stuff like the sets, costumes, and like stunt work, and they were shooting on location at I want to say like a place called St. Michael's Mount in Cornwall, and they said that the weather was very temperamental, so that might very well have had something to do with all of these like day for night filters. Talk about that later. Yeah.
Awesome.
And also my dragon's name is Darkpyre because we are of the night.
Nice.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Hot Pyre, the dragon. That's my name.
Yeah, I said last week that mine was Tempest, but I'm going to change it to Mucinex because I like that better.
You're gonna have lots of Y's and X's.
I think I took some of that yesterday to clear my nostrils.
The snotty
Always critical
dragon.
for a dragon to have clear sinuses.
Yeah, the green dread Mucinex.
Ugh. Oh my god, I didn't even come prepared with the dragon name. I'm gonna have to think about that. All right, while I think about that, let's go to Matt.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, I didn't know we had homework, but I wouldn't have done it anyway, so whatever. I'm once again going to abstain from giving a rating. Still loving the show. The kind of these interpersonal set pieces this episode I thought were fantastic, with that kind of like awkward, like sizing each other up at the, funeral pre-ceremony thing out on the terrace, like just everyone just kind of like walking around awkwardly. I thought was really great, and the knife confrontation at the end between Alicent and Rhaenyra did not disappoint. And plenty of other crazy shit going down in the meantime with Damon and Rainier coming together, and then the kind of the Rhaenyra surprise at the end. The only thing that holds me back is, I still have a lot of sympathy for Alicent and all that, but the character she surrounds herself with, I hate them with every fiber of my being, and I hate people like them. All this like Kristen Cole and Otto, and now Aemon too, and so while the dragon claiming was awesome, seeing it with Aemon here and like not getting a previous experience with Lena, it annoyed me, and I'm kind of just like quietly seething, even though it's great stuff that's happening on screen. But yeah, like that's kind of how it's supposed to be. Still having a blast.
Awesome. Michal.
Yeah, this is Michal, inkasrain. I did not know I was supposed to bring a dragon, so I'm not gonna. Because I tried to come up with some things on very short notice, and they all sounded super stupid in my head, so you're not getting them.
What about your short story title?
What's my short... What, Dear Callum?
Yeah.
Okay, my dragon is named Dear Callum. Dear Callum, the ink-stained horror. Yeah, I loved this episode. I mean, the show is always, like, in some ways deeply unpleasant, always. But, like, I just think they do a really, really good job with the storytelling. And, like, do I think they would have done a better job if, like, this were actually season 2 and we had spent, 10 episodes with young Alicent and Rhaenyra and, like, percolated in that a little more? Sure, but I think that, like, for what they've chosen to do, they have an incredible handle on the emotions and the motivations of everyone involved. Like, before the cocktail hour scene at the funeral, like, dissolved into grayness and mud, watching the way the camera kind of weaved in and out, and you saw who was talking to who and who was moving, and, like, there's one thing where Rhaenyra is, like, walking around and just, like, touching different people in her orbit, and there are just different relationships sparking off all over the place, and you can see the war. Just, it's like the blueprint of the war that hasn't happened yet, and I just found it, like, really intensely powerful to watch, really effective. And I thought the scene, with the confrontation and the knife was brilliant and beautifully done and whatever. Very glad that Rhaenyra was not the second very gay of the series, because I think 2 in 6 or 7 episodes is a lot. So I was very pleased with the way they resolved that. I don't know. I thought the kids were wonderful. Every time, you want to hate one of them, they sort of have this flicker of humanity. Like, Aegon's a terrible little shit and is betrothed to his own sister. And then his grandfather, kicks him very hard to wake him up because he's embarrassed. And I just feel like here's what I love about the show. I feel like all of these people, up to and including Kristen Cole, are their own solar system. They are the way that we all view ourselves, which is that they exist within the center of their own lives. None of them know that they're secondary characters or part of someone else's story. Everyone thinks that they are the star. And I just find that incredibly compelling. I've been talking for a while, but I really love this show. Even when I couldn't see it, I really loved it.
Awesome. And then Ben.
Hello, guys. I think I'll give this episode a 4 out of 5, and that 1 point is going to be just things that I didn't like. I think not killing Rhaenyra is a cop-out. I understand why they didn't do it, of course, but I think they should have done it in the end. I think it leaves this weird plot hole that makes very little sense as to why it would work. Just because of there's a couple things. The dragon being one, him being able to be found one day, and owing more credence to the idea that he's not their parents. And then the lighting. I think Miguel, every time Miguel directs an episode, it seems I cannot stand the lighting in it, and I think it ruins a couple scenes that otherwise should be great. And it annoys me that this has happened twice now, or well, twice if we count God, but happened now, and
yeah,
that it was just who said that this was a good idea? It looks ugly. I cannot stand the gray bullshit that was put on the screen for those 2 scenes in particular. And it is annoying because then the next scene after that, we get the kids fighting and then the confrontation in Corlys's hall. And those scenes are great. Everything around those scenes are great. And I want to like those scenes because in the substance of it, looks like Aemon's putting on a hell of a performance if I could see him, So, I don't know. I just hope that this is not a thing that's going to come back if Miguel comes and directs another episode. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had some issues with the lighting as well. I don't think it was as bad as
The Long Night.
The Long Night. Granted, I was, when I first watched that, my TV was it wasn't in the best spot. But I remember my experience with that just being holy shit, this is terrible. You don't even know what's happening, and probably feeling like the people in the show felt, which was ugh. And with this, it was just a little bit disappointing. It felt like you could simultaneously have this, it's almost like you're viewing this through a screen, looking in on people's private moments. And then it also just kind of felt like you could, it was the color scheme of Taylor Swift's new album that's coming out, Midnights, and you could put that probably to the background of it, and it would be also great. And it just didn't work for me. Lemon Cake wise, I want to give this episode a 4 out of 5 because it's still just so good as a show. And it gives a lot of things that I wanted, but I think what I'm missing is, I feel like I'm missing more interaction or more lean up to Damon and Rhaenyra's romance. It kind of felt like we're all of a sudden we got here. I know that time has technically passed and that's not how this show is working, but I just wanted more of that whole thing. And I feel after this, we're probably not going to be getting as much because they're going to have kids and it's going to be more war plotting than it is going to be sexy time. So I feel a little bit spoiled by that.
Well, hold on, Casey. You think that Rhaenyra's neediness for her uncle wasn't hot enough for you?
I mean,
didn't do it?
You know what? Incest aside, it's very hot.
It's two very attractive people, to be fair, but the context of the
Technically
situation.
not related.
Oh my god!
I was just reading an article today.
It's okay.
I didn't realize until I was reading an article today that Rhaenyra's children by Damon are technically her own cousins, and that
Right.
Oh,
And then there's the funnier thing is that Jace and Luke are set up to marry Bela and Rhaenyra, who are also their cousin. No, they're their second cousins.
Hang on, son, cousin, get over here.
There's some
Step
flavor of
siblings.
cousins.
Hans
Son.
of some sort.
No, so
The
Damon.
older generation. The older generation. The cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're
Come on,
cousins.
Targaryens.
Nah, I don't think that works to them.
just to put a final pin on the lighting, to me it's worse than the Long Night, because at least with the Long Night it was shot as a night scene, so it was like there were highlights of color, there was fire that was used in a way to direct the eye, whereas this was lit as a day scene and then just had like an ambient blue filter put over it, which means there's no focus for the eye. Everything just sort of blends together in a way that's very frustrating to watch. That's my final.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like the Aemond stuff. I mean, at that point, I turned off the lights so I could see it a little bit more. But the Aemond and the dragon stuff, was a little bit better. Whereas, for example, when Damon and Rhaenyra were like getting hot and heavy, I was like occasional flashes of white skin against just murky nothingness.
Yeah,
And
it's against
really it.
sand that is like it's hard to tell with the sand as well where pale ends and when sand meets, like
With the white hair and the sand.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess to be fair,
grainy
when
and
I
it
watch
gets
this
everywhere.
scene, and like I tend to, yeah, Anakin is Damon. That actually makes sense. To be fair, like I watch this scene and usually I already have the lights off or like very dim. I got the fireplace going, like, it's like House of the Dragon night. And my wife always she's like doesn't usually want to watch with me. So like I watch with the dog, and then half the time like my wife comes out like, to get something from the kitchen or whatever, and it's always something weird going on. And it's like I don't know, it's Rhaenyra and her uncle. She's like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh god. How do I explain
It's when your parents walk in on you watching anime. It's
yeah, so
literally
it was kind of
Parents never
dark.
walking in on me watching anime.
It was kind of dark, but it was more awkward for me because I was like, oh yeah, this is just this girl sleeping with her uncle. Don't worry about it.
So I watched this
By
on
the time the
Hulu.
dragon came, it was a little better. So
Yes, so I watched this on Hulu. I don't think I had this level of problems. I thought the coloring was a little off. But I could see what everything's going on. Is this something is it just a TV issue?
No, I was streaming it from HBO Max. Max.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
like I'm sure they could really like do the same thing that they did after the that episode in Game of Thrones, but like they basically were like your TV lighting's probably wrong, and it's like, no, it was dark. You were trying to do something cinematic with the lighting, and I think in that case it was fine for some people. For others, it really didn't work. And with this, it was more that I was just very, I have ADHD. I was just very distracted by like how like my eyes were like straining from trying to like make sure I could see this all clearly while watching the episode. So that was. It's not that I couldn't see everything. It's just that it was a little annoying.
we'll see how they handle the response to this, I guess, because the Long Night still makes me pissed off because like D&D trying to collectively, gaslight all of us. Like, well, did you plug it in? Did you turn? Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, did you reset your TV? Are you sure we had it too dim?
If your product means that I have to adjust my TV or my screen to make it watchable, then it's bullshit. I shouldn't have to do something like that.
Yeah, it's the viewers forgot to turn on their TV lighting or whatever.
Just forgot
Yeah,
about
I mean, I guess
calibrating their
the
settings.
audience just
Everybody
forgot
keeps
about the
forgetting shit in
brightness.
that. Everybody keep forgetting shit in the last season. Danny forgot her Starbucks cup. She also forgot her ships.
Yeah.
The Iron Fleet. Anyways,
She got our dragon.
yeah.
It's all fine.
Yeah, they forgot their ending.
As far as like the rest of the episode goes, with disregarding the lighting, I really liked it overall. My two Greg comments are, at one point he was like, I really hate how much this show makes me hate Rings of Power even more. And the other quote was, which was surprising to me, and, more of a serious comment, it was during the last scene where Alicent tries to take out another kid's eye. He thought that was very, he said, this is, you can tell when it's really, off book because this is bad writing. And I was like, no, I really like this scene. Stop it, Greg. So I thought that was interesting from that point of view, since I think most of us here really enjoyed that scene in particular. But yeah, overall I enjoyed it, and I feel like these characters are really interesting. I feel like Alicent is, in general, just like a person I would hate in real life, but I think that her character, she's obviously more of the, this is the way that things are, you just have to deal with it type of person, whereas Rhaenyra is more of a idealist, I guess. And I think that that's something that we see in a lot of things today, and I think that's a good theme to continue to roll with. So let's go scene by scene here. We start out this episode with the funeral scene for Helena, and I think somebody wrote in the episode thread that this part seemed very, of course, when I'm hosting things, I forget names. What was Theon's house name?
Greyjoy.
Greyjoy. That's really embarrassing. It seemed like a very Greyjoy thing. They're very one with the sea, and of course her casket goes underneath the water and to their underwater graveyard. And I think you can kind of see outlines of previous funerals in there. It's a pretty quick scene, but it's
Merlin King also. So
I got a good laugh at that one.
Yeah, I wrote that down and I was like, Merlin King!
Ye old Poseidon.
Yeah. I actually didn't even notice that.
Matt Smith gets in a good little giggle.
Yeah, that felt very like, oh god, this is so awkward. I feel bad for everyone attending this funeral.
Well, that was because, during, Vaimon's eulogy, right, he was, constantly just, subtweeting the Strong Boys, right? Just our blood
being a little cock.
Pure, and then just I think
Keep
that's
the
what
blood
Damon was
thick.
reacting to, rather than just the general situation of my wife's funeral. But it's still really fucked up. But
I think he's also I know this is a too modern interpretation, but I really see him as very, very narcissistic and anhedonic and ADHD. I feel like all of those things make a lot of his choices make sense. And of course he's gonna laugh. The whole thing is ridiculous. He didn't have there's nothing in this that he's supposed to play a role, right? That he has no interest in playing. Lena died on her own terms. He probably the next day was well, she's not here and she made her choice. So okay, I guess. And he's just not an emotional person in that way. So I it's not that I don't think he's not sad, but I think he has already this is an object permanence thing. She's not there anymore.
How he copes.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's one moment when he's talking to Viserys where he starts to crack a little bit, which is also whoa, the most mature thing we've seen Viserys do in a really long time. But I also I feel so bad for Lena because her funeral is not at all about her. Nobody cares. Absolutely nobody cares.
Well,
her thing is in the water, and then everybody's our plots and plans.
Her kids care, and they're pretty upset about it.
Her kids care, and Rhaena cares.
Yeah, I was gonna say Rhaena cares.
Yeah, and her mother cares.
Rhaenys cares. She's
Laenor cares.
I think Laenor cares in his own way.
I think it's very obvious how much he cares. The man is
broken,
inconsolable right now.
Yeah,
totally distraught. Let's just move on to the next big scene, which is basically the after party. And I kind of nicknamed this scene the Game of Long Stares because it's a lot of very quiet scenes where everybody's just kind of looking at each other, and you can kind of feel the tension building in, everybody seeing each other for the first time in a long time, and all of that. So what did you guys think?
I fucking loved Larry's and this whole interaction. Like, there's a lot of heavy talk that goes on here. Like, they talk about like the incest marriage and all this shit at some point, but like Larry's is over there just like mugging, and Kristen Cole's like, what the fuck is with that? And she's like, I think he's just he's the new lord. He's sad, but he's kind of, it's like one of those moments where I'm like, Cole will remember that.
He's Laris. He smiles when he's sad.
That's right.
Oh man, he like can't even hide like how happy he is,
how proud he is of all of it. Yeah.
Hey, by the way, I killed them. Oh shit! Did I say it?
Oh, we're at the wrong funeral. Oh.
Funerals just give me such a good feeling now. Like, I will say, like, this is one of the things that I think suffers in the time skip, because like we have no idea what this means to Laris at all. Does he really hate them? Is he internally like a little confused? Like we just have no idea. So I that's one of the things where, if we had more time, it would have been nice to be like some inkling about his emotions as to the existence of the rest of his family.
Also, how Alicent was just staring down Rhaenyra.
I know that rage face. Just like right when Rhaenyra walked in, it's just like, like Laris is staring at Alicent, Alicent's staring at Rhaenyra, Rhaenyra's staring at Damon.
It reminded me of an episode of Seinfeld. They're like, I'm going to go talk to him. No, don't do it. I'm going to do it. Hold my drink. Like, everybody's just like staring, having their own private conversations.
Yeah, it was pretty funny how like he was just her and Kristen just mean mugging.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's their MO forever now. So
there are a lot of really nice, like, just playing them over my head, like moments that play out, like Corlys talking to Luke and Luke giving the sweetest little answer about how he doesn't want to be Lord of Driftmark because then that means everyone's dead.
What a sweet kid.
Little buddy, everyone's gonna die. Don't you know what show you are in? Everyone is.
That scene literally broke.
Yeah. You won't have to worry about it.
Oh no.
No, that's the first thing I thought. I was like, this is so sad. This poor kid. Oh my gosh, it's heart-wrenching. And Corlys is, like not getting it so much. And then I'm like, oh no, he's not gonna have to worry about this though.
Yeah, and I also feel like it's a little bit like Corlys, the wrong time for this conversation. I think you can, maybe he thought that it was like the only time you could have this because, Rainier has probably locked herself at Dragonstone, but, different. He's 4, a little bit of a different time, maybe.
I feel like Corlys was slipping this whole episode, and maybe that's set up for the next episode. But he was not on his game in this episode.
Yeah.
I mean, he has some of the same self-delusion in there too.
Yeah. Okay. So Jace goes over to comfort the twins, and I want to say Bela grabs his hand, and that's notable because she has a little crush on him, right?
They end up betrothed, I think.
Right. But then, like, she's actually like kind of into him, but then he may or may not have married Sarah Snow when he's burrowing down at Winterfell.
That scene is cool for 2 reasons. Like, specifically when Rhaenys comes over,
and
because
he comes over and just like, I'm here, but I feel like I'm not supposed to be in this conversation.
That total little kid thing where he's just kind of like twirling a little in place, looking down at his cape as it's twirling back and forth. Yeah, and it also just sets up that Rhaenys just like completely cold shoulders him. Like, he instinctively moves away from her as soon as she comes near. Like, it's not just that like she wants to be, well, he's her grandchild too, but he's like not part of the family as what she considers to be her family.
I think there's a lot of like who's willing to play the game, and it's not it's not for the same reasons, but it tends to fall out over whether or not you accept the lie of the boy's parentage. Like Alicent is like apoplectic because she just can't stand the charade anymore, whereas I think Rhaenys is just more like she's just lost her daughter, and she has she knows she's only these two girls are it, you know, and she's just not willing to play the game anymore. And she obviously does it a lot more subtly than Alicent does. But I think that's kind of you fall along those breaking points, you know, everyone in the scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Corlys is surprisingly chill about the whole thing, but
I got the Tywin vibes. It doesn't matter, man. They don't remember blood, they remember names.
I feel like this episode was very, or I guess like the past couple episodes, it seems like the men in this case are very like, so what if they're not technically like hers? It's fine. And the women, Rhaena and Alicent, are very like, this obviously matters a ton. And I find that interesting.
Well, no, it's like a major theme of this show is women like enforcing their oppression on each other.
Right, yeah. You can definitely see that, especially with Alicent. And Rhaenys is very, you know, she's kind of like accepted her fate, I think.
Yeah. Because speaking of Alicent, she has now betrothed Aegon and Helena, and Aemond
sticks up for his sister.
Feels like he would be a better match. I totally bang my sister.
He also just is nicer. It was very odd for him to be the one that's just nicer.
No, I feel like it makes sense, right? Because they're both like being bullied by Aegon.
Yeah.
I mean, this Aemond is a little bit different than how he has the serious bullied kid that finally gets something good in his life and start overflowing with confidence. You get that, right?
I mean, he kind of feels more like a Rhaegar Targaryen type, like where he might be a good guy, but I think he might steer more towards Damon in the end.
I mean, not with how he immediately treated those kids after he got the dragon. Like,
yeah.
Like, fuck that kid.
It's all about the hierarchy, right? Like, Aemond, I think maybe is not naturally as suited to climbing the ranks, which was why he was, you know, the odd one out. And, you know, Alicent doesn't even really care if, you know, Aegon messes with him as long as they're alone. But he's very aware of that, you know, that hierarchy. So when he jumps so many rungs up the ladder, he is immediately like, well, I'm treating everyone the way, you know, even if obviously Baela and Rhaena never did, the way, you know, he's taking on, he's a hurt person hurting people, you know, another theme of this show.
Yeah.
But it's so sad that he just goes all in that way. Like, that is his personality now.
I also wanted to point out that with, like, matching Helena and Aegon, not only is it just, like, the Targaryen test thing, but, like, the Hightowers are aware that they are the grasping kin of the consort. So I found it a nice touch that, like, you know, like, they're precluding that opportunity in the next generation for their claimants. And, you know, like, they can bring the Baratheon in the tent later, but they're not gonna let someone else take the position they have now, or give them the opportunity.
What do we make of Helena's prophecy when she's playing with the spider?
I don't think I'm not sure if it's anything meaningful, because it's about, like, you know, like spools of black, spools of green, but it's not like about like spooling them. It's not about like weaving them together. So maybe that's the absence of that is the point. But
so I think it to me, like, at first, like, listen through, it sounded just like, you know, she's talking about the start of the Dance of the Dragons. And, you know, the crushing of that spider means that it ends in death. But I couldn't tell, like, on second listen through, I was like, you know, I felt like it also just seemed kind of like a little bit like of a foreshadow of the Dance of the Dragons, maybe, but I couldn't really get much else out of it. It wasn't as, like, blatant as the whole he'll have to lose an eye first thing from last episode.
Yeah, if they're turning her into Cassandra, I'm just waiting for her to, like, point at Clubfoot and yell, "His name is Death!"
Matt, did you want to say something?
No, not too important. Just, yeah, I mean, it's just vague. You know, it's just vague Civil War shit. Like, it's not. I don't think it was anything specific we need to read too much into yet.
Yeah, it might even be like foreshadowing, even just like the end of this episode.
Jon Snow.
I enjoy. Yeah, she is going to be muttering lines from the Game of Thrones. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, that's definitely coming.
I enjoyed Aegon just using this funeral to get drunk. The little asshole. He's just every time you see him, he's grabbing another cup. Like
he is such an interesting. He reminds me so much of Joffrey from the original show, in the sense that he's kind of just like goofing around and he doesn't care. He hasn't become sadistic yet, so maybe not full Joffrey, but he definitely reminds me a little bit.
He's Joffrey if Joffrey was lazy.
yeah. He's
not
just
a complete,
I don't think he has the level of sociopathy of Joffrey. He doesn't know how to torture.
I don't think he's a sadist either. So
he's just a bully. He's a big dumb jock bully.
Yeah.
He was pretty fucking funny this episode with all his stuff, as Katie points out, wench. And yet it's interesting seeing the next time on where the actor that they got to like play the more adult version just looks like a huge fucking douche.
Dude, the guy they picked for Aemon, he has an infinitely memeable face.
Oh yeah,
awesome. That guy was pretty good at in like the Last Kingdoms.
That guy looks like a snake in human form, and it's so perfect.
As a side note, I guess this is for sure we're not getting Daron then. The fourth.
I think we saw him though.
We didn't see him, but I think they're casting him.
And I think I looked at a still from the dragon pit scene in the previous episode, and there was a third figure in green who was clearly not Helena, so that might have been him. But don't quote me on that.
That would be bizarre. They're like, oh yeah, here's our other brother we haven't mentioned.
Yeah, I would prefer more that they have him just chilling in Old Town right now, so they can bring him in.
Yeah. It's weird that they don't talk about him.
I'm going to try my theory, guys. Christian Cole is his father. Daron hasn't been born yet, and Alicent's going to give birth the year after Viserys dies.
Yeah, no, I am wondering if they're gonna go through with that they're fucking, because there's definitely probably hints to it so far.
I don't think they're having sex yet, but I think that in the gory.
The post Viserys,
exactly. It will be very much like, oh, you put the crown on my son's head. Ah.
What'd you think of the scene where he says, "Emma, I'm going to"?
That was awesome.
That was great. And then I was like, is he going? Is this dementia? Is he just drunk? What's going on?
I thought it was intentional.
I don't think it was intentional.
Ooh.
I think it's just him losing himself slowly.
I think that's really interesting, though, if it's intentional.
I mean, I don't think it's, fully intentional, but it's just, he's just, kind of, he just, goes through periods where he's just, sick of her bullshit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, she's just turned into the old ball and chain, and, it's just, we can understand why, Alicent is apoplectic and all that, but just Viserys is really sick, and he's old and he's exhausted, and he just doesn't want to deal with Alicent's raging about the strong boys yet again. And just last night at the end of last episode, he's clearly just missing Emma, and part of that is because she's dead and she's not there to talk back to him, right? But
yeah.
But this is Viserys.
Has never wanted to deal with it, so it's not just an old and tired thing. He is.
Well, yeah, no, but it's just bringing out his previous tendencies even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is the embodiment of I'm not here for your shit. The memes with him as smoking frustrated Ben Affleck are that's just him. That's his energy all the time. I don't want any problems. They're but dude, you're the ruler.
It is your problem.
Right. I did like the scene where he goes over to Damon and tries to, let bygones be bygones, and then Damon's just he's, you can see him,
emo Damon.
God, right, you forget, what the actual, line is, but that's just, when I read it as, it's just, you're offering me the thing I've spent my entire adult life wanting from you now, and it's not enough. And I think it's
even more. Yeah, I think it's even more that he's why are you asking me this now? Is this really the time?
Right. And yeah, so it's just like I liked that aspect of the performance because it's part of the reason why he's so interested in Rhaenyra.
And I think that's a good segue into our next scene with Damon and Rainier on the beach. I think we've kind of overwhelmed our conversation with the lighting. So other than the lighting, we have them on the beach and they kind of go over, you know, how they're feeling about their previous affairs passing away. And then they, you know, they get into it in the moonlight, under a boat. I think that was a boat, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. There's supposed to be some.
Thank goodness for that boat.
A driftwood.
These Westerosi people, they murder each other during weddings, and have sex during funerals. I don't think they understand how any of this is supposed to work.
I found this scene to be very touching. There's a lot of when you squint and you can see what the faces are doing, there's a lot of really good face acting, like when Rhaenyra reveals that she was, you know, she found it was good to be desired elsewhere, and he kind of gives her a sideways smirk, like he's proud of her, like, yeah, you went off and you got what you wanted, good for you, that's what I was trying to teach you before. And then as soon as she says, you know, I've been alone, you abandoned me, like, I felt that felt honest and true. It's like, oh, he's the only person, I think, or from her perspective, she felt like he was the only person who kind of understood her on a very specific level. And with him not there, it's like, who did she have? Like, she had Sir Harwin, who, from her conversation, from what she said earlier, she didn't love him. He was a good companion, but aside from that, she didn't seem to have any friends. So yeah, I understood that. It was very tender, unexpectedly so.
Yeah, I felt similarly. You know, let's all just like not think about him being her uncle for a second, and once you forget about that, it just seems like a nice scene with two lovers who get to re-interact with each other. And you know, I felt like at first that Damon almost didn't want to do this because I think that part of me feels like that he feels a little bit like this is something we shouldn't be doing, maybe guilty about the past and all of that, but then he just kind of gives in, and it seems like they, you know, obviously they hit it off and they go pretend murder Rhaenyra.
I mean, they hit it off when you know she was a baby, I guess. So yeah, let's keep that in mind. He's wanted this for so long. Come on, he's not playing coy. Come on.
He is. I mean, he can't see. He is coy in some way in that he can't really say outright what he wants, or like that would be too weak or vulnerable. Like she asks him outright, "Did you love Lena?" And whereas he kind of like toys around with it, he's like, "I've heard that he was very devoted to you," and clearly he's wanting to like probe her feelings and see, you know, did she care for him? It's like she's very direct, and he can't be forward about what he wants. Like he has to kind of lead her into it.
He says, "Well, we were happy enough." But like, I get the read that he did care about her. I mean, they keep bringing us to that edge, and then like they pull it back. You know, I don't know, which I don't necessarily think is fair to his character, but
not unlike Damon.
Yeah. But we also get confirmation here from Rhaenyra that her and Rhaenyra did try. Like they were like, we tried to do it, and we couldn't. So.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like what they were trying to show with this and with what Rainier is saying here and what Rhaenyra was saying towards the end of the episode, that like it seemed like he tried but he just couldn't like make it happen, which, you know, all in all just felt really sad. And there was a point where I was just like, can you just like bring the other guy into the room to get it done at least? But
that might be a bridge too far for them. Like, I mean, yeah, they might just be like, that's too weird, as if this all isn't weird enough. I don't know.
Too weird.
Easy solution.
I know.
Could have solved their problems.
But I'm just glad that we at least see that they tried and they weren't just like shirking their duty. So
yeah.
Bring on the real fluffer.
I also think that Damon in that conversation might have had some residual guilt over the sexual situation he put Rhaenyra in when he had intended to take her virginity. Like, I think that was, even for him, and I like the theory that he just couldn't get it up at that point, but like, I think even for him, he was aware that that was quite line crossing, even if Rhaenyra like ostensibly consented. And I think he's a little gun shy, honestly. Like, I think he
I think he couldn't do it. I think that's the good in him.
I think that I think it's complicated. Like, I don't think he's like any more like not in the wrong for what he did in, I guess it was episode 4, where you can kind of see like how he kind of grooms her into her sexuality. But like with this, it seems like he does have some remorse, and he does kind of feel like, no, both times, like, no, this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. It's just that he finally just gives it up. And I really think that if Helena actually lived, that I think he was pretty resigned to, against Helena's wishes, resigned to staying in Pentos, and just living out his life there.
Interesting.
I mean, the line she has, like, I'm not a kid anymore, was very, crucial to the whole exchange.
Yeah.
I spared you has a lot of self-loathing to it too. It's not just like, I didn't fuck you. It's I spared you having to be with me.
Yeah, like no one deserves this. Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
I have issues.
How bad if he feels bad about this shit? How bad is he going to feel when he realizes that he's supervillain origin Cole?
Well, Cole, I feel like Cole is also very complicated. I feel like he was Rhaenys. Too many Rays. Rhaenyra kind of forced Cole into their first encounter. Coerced, I guess, is probably the better way to put it, because it was consensual at the end. But it's all complicated. Like, he's kind of turned into this like reborn virgin, and I'm not doing anything wrong, and I'm doing everything I can for Alicent, who saved my life.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, Rhaenyra is a black hole that sucks all the good and light in the world, around her. She's an evil she-spider, so, I mean, I get it.
I feel like he's so interesting now, like, because he's almost so simple. Like, the only thing that is motivating Criston Cole is his loathing for Rhaenyra. Like, every single, like, encounter, every time when he laughs at the joke about Rhaenyra, like, I heard people refer to it as like homophobic, and like I recognize that this is splitting the finest of hairs, but like in my head it's not relevant whether he's homophobic. He knows that a joke is being made at Rhaenyra's expense.
Yeah.
So he's going to laugh at it and make sure people know. Like that is more his motivation than anything else.
Yeah, except later when he has a chance to actually
yeah, well, that's
get back at Rainier a little bit.
But yeah, that's so interesting too. I feel like people are just like, oh, Criston Cole, you're an evil guy now, and I'm like, yeah, but he's such an interesting evil guy now.
Yeah, I think some of the discourse has been kind of annoying when it comes to him, in that it's like we're supposed to like pre-hate him, and it's like, no, he's interesting. That's the fun part. Like, yeah, he's a hateable little douchebag for the things that he's been doing in recent episodes, but up until very recently, he's been a pretty normal person.
Yeah, he started as on an honorable arc. I think that's what they wanted to present to us. I mean, he's definitely gone off the rails, but
I just keep going back to like what is Rhaenyra's like responsibility here? Like, obviously she did not have to run away with him and marry him. Obviously she was not like none of that. I think what you can pin on her is she just had no concept of what she was actually asking of Cole and what he gave up to sleep with her. Like, it just did not even enter her mind. And the fact that she, and again, she's young. She's being confronted with a very strange situation with this proposal to relitigate last week's episode, but like, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. But like, she is not like, she views it as like, okay, I guess we're breaking up now, as opposed to like, I am not aware of why he is reacting so strongly. Because I firmly believe like his proposal was not a proposal. It was like a life raft, like a Hail Mary for him. And, again, I don't want to be like the young girl is responsible for the entirety of the man's feelings, because she's not. but she is an active participant in this relationship, and it is an unequal relationship, and she just doesn't kind of take any responsibility for that. Now, does that justify like 10 years of absolute solid hatred and everything that Cole is going to do after? Absolutely not. But I just find it like it just doesn't come from nothing, and I like that this show is interesting on that level to be able to deal with that.
We can recognize that he's being an asshole to the kids, for an example, but also say like that comes from a place, and it's not a good place. It's truly not a good place. He is not a good human being on some level. Now, but like the start of the resentment and the issue he had with her comes from a real place of like he feels like he was put in this impossible situation, and then his like way of saving himself, he feels like, or like fixing what he did wrong, was kind of like not necessarily laughed off. She was really nice about it, honestly, but it was not taken as seriously as I think he wanted it to be.
I think that's what sort of maybe made me, I don't know, I wasn't annoyed. I was just like side-eyeing a lot of the discourse, which that turned into Team Black, Team Green. That's not, I mean, it's funny. It's fun. I get the tribalism aspect to it. I get the sports team aspect to it. But like, that's not the point.
Yeah, I think that, that kind of has a little bit of a greens versus blacks. There's part of me that feels like the show is trying to force that on us. They're making like the green thing very, very, very obvious.
I think they're trying to draw the line there. And I think they want people to get attached, get into that feeling, sense of feeling, because that's how people at that time sort of maybe.
Well, I mean, I think they need to. I mean, I think that's important for like the engagement of the average viewer. I mean, absolutely. People with Game of Thrones are like, oh, I'm a Lannister, I'm a Greyjoy. Like, people kind of identified with these different houses and go, oh yeah, I watch every week to see what someone's doing, right? And like so far, it's just been like, oh, it's all Targ. So like they have to give people something to go, oh, okay, like.
But I think there's a little bit difference of just like everybody on this side is awesome, they're right, everything they do, and everybody on the other side, they're evil, they're greens. I feel like that's not the point. That's never the point in Game of Thrones either.
You're a mean one, Mr. Cole.
I mean,
oh no!
It makes the show less interesting if it's just all tribalism, right?
Well, that's the thing I think that the show is doing well. Like, yeah, they're dividing. They are very blatantly showing like greens versus blacks, but they're also, instead of what they're doing, what the original show did towards the end, which was like very clear. Jon Snow is right, and the Starks are right, and Daenerys is totally a terrible, crazy person. And instead, like, you might have more people on Rhaenyra's side, but you can see how gray all of these characters are, and it makes that decision difficult, like, any kind of political situation can be, in many cases. So I feel like they're kind of like, yeah, are you blue, or black, are you green? And it's supposed to be a difficult decision, not like a one side like checks off all the boxes that you have, which I hope to see, more of that. I hope it doesn't go more like Alicent is clearly crazy and all these people on her side are completely crazy and awful, and Rhaenyra's side is awesome because we have Matt Smith.
Can't be this way, according to the main story beats.
Yeah.
Or else I have serious questions about people who watch the show and humanity in general, of blood and cheese and that sort of crap.
I'm cheering for blood and cheese, but that's not fine.
Yeah, I got a shirt.
They're very complicated backstories. No, I do kind of wonder, going forward, like, because my line about the Dance with Dragons has always been like, if Team Green does nothing, there's no war, and like, so I still hold by that, but I kind of wonder if like there will be some kind of different circumstance, like when they do crown Aegon. I don't know, maybe not. But like they took a big step toward making Team Black much nicer with the non-murder of Rhaenyra and his lover.
See, I don't like that.
I hear that. I mean, I still think it's worth it in the grand scheme of things. But
fair.
Yeah, it's fun.
I think they did it more to not kill another gay character than they did for the plot.
That
And also, like,
yeah, I don't like that
Like,
though. I understand
yeah, but,
it,
like-
but I don't like it. Go ahead though. Sorry.
yeah, so just like, okay, yeah, like, I generally agree with Michal that, like, there's, without Team Green doing what they decide to do, there's no war. But, like, Rhaenyra's, like, paranoia around betrayal and, her tyranny in King's Landing is coming. And, like
Someday, yeah.
being that, like, we're book readers, like, I feel fine waiting for that. I feel fine for, like, because, like, this episode is her and Damon getting together. And, like, they have that whole monologue about, like at least how they justify things to themselves in the moment of, like, let them think me a tyrant. I know the truth. Well, let's see how long that lasts, right?
But I mean, I posed this a couple weeks ago, I think, and I mean, I could be wrong, but I get the read, like, from Otto and stuff here. Like, if Rhaenyra had been born a boy, and this, like, succession isn't, the question, and then, let's say there's bastards involved, or whatever it is, you kind of flip some of the genders here. Like, I still feel like if he remarries and Alicent has these kids, like, Otto's gonna find some reason to, you know what I mean? Like,
I agree, and I also
Yeah,
think
I
that,
also agree.
like, I agree, and I also think that, like, even if Rhaenyra didn't have the strong boys, from Alicent's perspective, if it wasn't that, it'd be something else. Like, I feel like this is about, like, about, like, Otto's, like, toxicness,
Sorry, just quickly, like, I think that's something we see really clearly in the later scene when Otto is like, "Oh, you are a player. You're not just my piece," and, like, it puts into context, like, all of the, not just the few short scenes that we've seen between them, but, like, clearly the way she was raised to think of herself was just as a tool for someone else to use, whether that was Viserys to pump out babies or her father to get closer to power or whatever. Like, I definitely agree that a lot of the poisonous environment here can be traced specifically back to Otto. Not just him, but he's a very outsized part of it, especially considering, like, he hasn't been present in a couple episodes.
If not Otto, toxic masculinity at this point. So to move on with the show, I want to just touch a little bit on Aemond getting Rhaegar, and then the fight that ensues between the kids, which, I feel like we kind of lose in all of this, that Aemond took Baela and what's the other girl's name? Rhaenyra's mother's dragon that they, it was probably like one of the last things they're holding on to here. And, that felt like very shitty, but it is now his dragon. So how did we feel about all this?
That was a good scene. I think it was, it was nice to get that moment of Aemond on his own before, like, he gets the thing that allows him to be the biggest tool in Westeros.
I think it humanizes him. I mean, we talked about this earlier, is that he's the bullied child who he has this incredible ecstatic experience, and it just lifts him up, and he's like, oh, okay, I have the power now.
Right.
So,
no, I like that. I like that, you see his joy, to, like, like, when he's like, when he sees it, like, that this is working, right?
Mm-hmm. I think it's an understandable way he feels, because for him, it's like he feels defiant. It's like, these little shits that gave me the pig, I'll feed you to my dragon. Like, it's terrifying, but it's also completely understanding. It's like, if you'd been a bully kid in that position, of course you're going to gloat about it. And of course, if you're Rhaena, who's had, like, a stone egg for 12 years, you're going to be really pissed.
Yep.
And I think it feels very much like those 80s movies that we look back on now as, like, kind of problematic and shitty in a lot of ways, but are kind of themed around, like, beating up bullies, at, like, Revenge of the Nerds type shit, that, oh, this was funny to us, but it's like, no, like, you can go toxic yourself when having been bullied, going against a person. You can be just as shitty afterward in how you respond to it.
I think. Sorry, just as a quick note, I do think it's great that maybe one of the best choreographed fight scenes in the show is between, like, a bunch of kindergartners beating the shit out of each other.
Give me back my dragon.
That was
Yeah,
Bob's dragon, which honestly is actually pretty sad.
Yeah, I mean, I
Saying
think,
that
I
it is
think we
actually
go from this great scene, which I know was hard to see. I had the lights off and stuff, but I mean, I actually thought it was pretty good because he was doing this by by the moonlight and all that. I mean, like Vhagar could have flamed him or eaten him right there, and I don't know. I thought this was a great scene, and I'm like, oh, I'm kind of feeling for this kid, and it's exhilarating, and he's in the air, and you're like, shit, he got this dragon, and I at the same time I know he's such a shit, and this is like really this right here is like the nuclear weapon that really empowers them, but they give us this scene and it's really great, and then immediately we just run into like I'm gonna start killing my cousins, oh
yeah, and I think that I think on some level, I do feel a little bit for Aemond in this scene because I feel like he's very much influenced by his brother, as was shown in the previous episode, where I feel like that's all he knows what to do. Like he's gonna say what his mom said about the kids. He's gonna say he's just gonna be another bully because that's all he has to look up to at this point, unfortunately.
Another part of the net discourse I did not like was people trying to judge which little kid is more in the right in the little kid fighting.
Yeah, I thought it was really weird. Like, I think it's pretty. People were like, "Oh, he's older than them," and it's like, I don't know.
A few years, sure.
He's older than a few years, but it's 4-on-1, and then
I mean, it's 4-on-1, but they clearly
and they have him on the ground,
so I mean, he's got a rock.
The other kid
they do start dogpiling him, but then he gets the rock, and then they do a good, I guess, a good job of
the dagger comes out first, though.
No, I don't think Jace doesn't pull the dagger until after he's about to literally bash Luke's head in.
Yeah.
I don't want to just to judge little kids fighting. They're little kids.
Toddler Fight Club.
I
but one of them's Aemond.
That's the problem, though. We're judging him based upon what he will become 10 years
Yeah,
later.
but I mean, I do judge his shitty actions here where he's like, fuck you, you're not real, we're going to be king, I'm going to just kill you. I mean, yeah, he's a kid, and you're like, a kid shouldn't do that, but what kid does that? On balance,
kids that are
that's the problem.
He comes back
you're judging it from a modern perspective of kids are schooled not to do that, but when you're in that sort of environment where they can pull out daggers because they're princes and nobody
right, and then we try them as adults. I don't know.
so we shouldn't do that. That's
but
my
it's
point.
funny, we've only seen one, but how many times has he been belittled and pushed around, and now it's this is his moment of triumph.
And they're coming to fuck with him during it, and it's you guys gave me a pig, go away, leave me alone. I don't
know if they're necessarily coming to fuck with them, but they are like, what the fuck?
Well,
I mean,
they wanted to.
It's fair on both sides.
I feel like
the murder.
It's again their parents' issues are getting in the middle of this fight. If Aemond didn't say oh, you guys are strongs, it might have not escalated to the point that it did.
Right, but it's hard to blame him for saying that there too.
Yeah, because he's ganged up on. I
mean, that's what
in
kids
his
do.
Perception. Yeah,
but I do think it's tying this to later on, which we'll get to. I think it's fucking metal later on when he's like, yeah, an eye's worth this fucking giant dragon. I'm cool with it.
Otto calls him a rogue. I thought that was fun. Is a callback to Damon. Yeah, he's very much in the Damon type of personality, I would say.
Yeah, the coin flipped one way with him.
Back in the hall scene when he's talking. When he says the line, it cuts to Damon immediately after. Just this is gonna be great.
His name is literally Damon. It's just the D put at the end.
Just mixed.
It's subtle.
I do really feel what it sucks because I want to feel bad for Aemond in this scene more than I do because he has been it's interesting. I almost wonder if they were kind of hoping that non-book readers would think that he would get thrown off the dragon because he's a fairly nice kid, or at least harmless, and he is being picked on. And I thought both when he went into the dragon pit last week and when he's getting thrown all around Vhagar this week, I thought that if you were a non-book reader you would be oh, this poor kid is gonna die and then that's gonna whatever, but obviously that didn't happen. But I really do feel like the fight that happens is the result of like basically a bunch of parents shaking a bunch of their emotional soda bottles for years, and then the kids going, and then everything explodes. Like this is the first act of the war, really. Like I think.
Can we just? I mean, I think this is really mostly just Alicent. Like her like ranting about like the strong boys. Like I don't like. It seems like like Rhaenyra is actually like like trying to be a good mother. Yeah, Damon's rather neglectful unless it like intersects with his specific interest. But like, no, this is like Alicent teaching her kids that they have a carte blanche to like act this way.
And her children covered. I mean, Aemon covers for her when Viserys is trying to get him to bring forth who started the rumor.
Yeah,
and he looks at his mom and he decides to blame his brother, like his drunk brother, who's
still
like,
super exposed in that scene. And then he goes, "Oh, it was Aegon."
Oh yeah, she shuts up really fast. But I don't know. I guess I view it slightly differently, which is that like I just am not kind of into being like, you're not a good mother, Alicent. Like, sorry, you were forced to bear.
I'm not interested
children.
in that either. But like, that is what's going on here, and
But I think she views herself as
like
being a good mother.
Sure. So like, yeah, from her view, she is protecting their rights and teaching her kids to advocate for themselves. But like, like come on, this is like, like this is like this is happening this way because like she's basically given Aemon or Aegon a like license to bully Aemon and to not like actually like stand up for him meaningfully to his brother.
I think she did tell Aegon to stop bullying Aemon.
She told Aegon
we don't know.
Not in front of Aemon.
We don't know that. It just wasn't shown on TV show. And
I think she said don't do it in public.
Don't do it in public.
And public means the strongs.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, we don't have enough interactions, I feel, to judge her motherhood fully.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling. I feel like we haven't had enough scenes to really like show how Rhaenyra is like parenting her kids. I feel like we've had like individual scenes with Alicent, with each child at this point. I even feel like we've had more scenes with Damon's kids, who I felt like were very left out of this part of the scene. That this should have been, they kind of get thrown aside when their mother died and they're probably the ones grieving the most. It's all to do with their politicking. I guess one last thought, just like I feel like with Alicent's kids, you can kind of see like the generational trauma of each like group. Alicent's mother has passed away when she was very young, and so she never had that influence, and it kind of is very apparent in their upbringing, I feel like. And probably Viserys being an absent father didn't help much either, or what I assume is an absent father. We don't really know.
Yep.
Oh no, he
Lego
seems
table.
super involved. PTA and everything.
Yeah, he's also just older father problems, I guess. All right, let's move into this climactic scene of the aftermath of the children fighting. So we basically kind of get like a who did this, what happened, and the kids are completely silent about it originally, but Aemon has lost one of his eyes, and Alicent is furious. Eventually we get to a point where like Rhaenyra's kids are like, they attacked me, we attacked them back because they said that we're bastards, and Viserys questions his kids, and they say that it is pretty obvious, and try not to say that it was Alicent who told them, and then Alicent goes full eye for an eye, and she tries to take one of the kids' eyes out, and in the process scratches or cuts Rhaenyra.
Scratches.
And it's pretty crazy. I thought that the scene was excellent. It just like kind of shows how everything's imploding, everything that's kind of been beneath the surface for the past episode and a half come fulfilled, and just show how kind of fucked everything is and how much Viserys just does not want to deal with this at all. Yeah, what did you guys think?
Interesting that you say he doesn't want to deal with it. I think he does want to deal with it. It's just that he doesn't have the tools. Like, emotionally, he doesn't have the tools.
Right.
It's like love is getting in the way of him actually doling out any kind of meaningful justice. Like, and when I say justice, I don't mean like he should have cut out Luceria's eye or anything. I mean like actually letting, like, being harsh with certain parties, or actually like taking things away from them, or doing anything that would, you know, prevent further retaliation. He just doesn't have it in him to risk being disliked by his family. So he doesn't do. It's like, so the only thing he can do is shout at them, and that achieves nothing.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably a better way of putting it. I think that he just doesn't have the energy really to like spend time to figure out what needs to happen here.
Yeah, like a sustained work through these relationships. For him, it's like, oh, I can be explosively angry for an hour, and I get them to leave me alone and calm down for a couple weeks. Or I could spend the necessary years it would take to fix this family.
He is your typical like head of house. Just wants to have like a good Sunday watching football with his kids and have everybody get along and drink beer together. And he doesn't realize that he's never going to get that because of all the decisions that he made to make this all happen.
Yep. Yeah.
It's like when you keep kicking all the problems further down the line. Not that I've never been, you know, had the urge to do that myself, but eventually you're going to run into a whole big pile of problems. And like, he tries to swerve around it here, and you know, he almost does something kingly with the whole like, I'll cut out, you know, their tongues will be cut out threat. But like, you know, at this point, it's very much too little, too late from Viserys. Like, unless he like devoted himself to healing the rifts in this family, which I don't even know would be possible. It really is just kind of a farce of leadership, of parenthood, of like authority of any kind.
Yeah.
If he really fought with Alicent, it feels like he doesn't have the energy to do it anymore, to like fight with her and try to work on these things, because he was exceptionally happy at in the last episode, the idea of, you know, betrothing Helena and Jace, and now it's like, no, he like can't even muster that stuff to like try and be around to suggest things like that.
Two things. I think Damon scouting the whole party and just smirking the whole time was excellent.
Yes. In the after the episode, he's like, I feel like Damon's a leaner, so I just leaned.
Oh my god.
Go ahead, Katie, sorry.
Yeah, he's thrilled at the chaos and to be on the outside for once. But also I feel like Alicent, her emotions run the hottest in this scene, so I think it's easier to kind of feel with her. But I find her like very relatable and I'm able to empathize with her when she loses it, because it's like that, like everyone wants to be Rhaenyra, who just lives her life fearlessly, like even when she's constrained, she just does what she wants, and it doesn't really, from the outside perspective, it doesn't seem to like take anything from her, and we know otherwise, but from Alicent's perspective, that's not the case. Whereas for Alicent, it's like, I did everything that I was supposed to do. I did everything that everyone told me to do, and yet nothing goes my way. How is that fair? And obviously she's in the wrong, but just like when she snaps, it's like, I get it, girl. She's like, I don't understand. Like, why is nobody taking my side?
Though? Kids have dragons. Like, yeah, like her kid, like, they got into a fight and he lost the fucking eye because he fucked around and found out. I mean, honestly, I mean, I don't really get what the problem is here. She goes crazy. She tells fucking Cole to go do it, and he's like, "Oh, my lady, I don't listen to you." Just hilarious. And then she just goes straight for the knife. And I mean, like, you talk about Damon. Damon was like, you know, low key, like he was like Yeah, he was surveying the whole room, and as soon as Cole goes, he goes, buddy, just step over here. Like, I mean, it was a great bit of choreographing just the whole scene.
I think, and is it logical? No, but I think emotionally, like, Rhaenyra is her sore spot where it's like Rhaenyra has the life, or led the life that she wanted, and it's like, this isn't fair. Like, you just get everything you want. And I thought it made, like, perfect sense, and I also understand Rhaenyra. That's like, God, it must be so tiring to just live this way, to just, like, feel like you have to prove that you're better than everyone else.
Royal problems.
Yeah, it was just, like, it was a very excellent conversation. And it also, I think, snapped together a lot of the previous interactions throughout the season and reinforced them in a really strong way. So I thought it worked for me. Like, on an emotional level, I thought it was really resonant.
Yeah, it feels like, so this is a situation I can speak to. But, like, it feels like when you have parents that are, like, first-generation immigrants, essentially, and then their children are, like, lead a better life, and it's like, yeah, our problems are not your problems, and that's okay, but you shouldn't be angry at me that my problems are not your problems. Why are you upset that the things that I deal with are different than the things you deal with, even though we both have problems dealing with these things? That's the kind of vibe I get from Alicent, a person that just, like, she can't let go that someone has a life in a different way and is happy doing it.
Yeah. And she's not mad at Otto. I mean, Rhaenyra did not make her marry the fucking king of, like, the dead over here falling apart. Like,
what I personally don't like about Alicent, just because, it's just like, look, I've, like, seen, or, like, perhaps it's just overexposure to me of, like, like exploring these feminist themes already, that just, like, this iteration isn't quite doing it for me, because, I've seen a lot of, like, nuanced portrayals before, and, like, it's not really the show's fault, but, like, I can't control the reaction I'm having also,
Mm-hmm. No, I totally get that. I think what the show is kind of, like, portraying here is, like, both women here feel like the other has more power than them, and they kind of resent each other for it. It kind of starts with Alicent becoming queen, and Alicent does use that power in certain instances. And yet, because Rhaenyra has been able to live the life that she, at least in Alicent's eyes, is exactly what she wanted. She's able to sleep with other guys. She's able to, have kids that aren't laners, and all of that. Like, I feel like they both feel like the grass is greener on the other side, and they both, like, maybe they could have a conversation with each other, but it's kind of too deep at this point, and it's also kind of Viserys' fault that all of this is happening.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is that's the point. Like, it does ultimately spool from patriarchal figures messing these people up. I think you can't. One of the reasons I love this show is, like, you can't defend what Alicent does in this episode, in this scene particularly, right? Like, no, Jace does not deserve to lose his eye, like, and she really does, like, she snaps. She absolutely snaps. I think there was some conversation on the thread about, like, whether this was too on the nose and, like, outwardly and obvious and whatever. And in general, I'm not like, you should, like, the characters should say what they're feeling, but I think Alicent needed to. Like, I think for herself as well as for the audience. Like, I mean, I think there are, like, a lot of people who didn't get what she was going through, and, like, no offense, but, like, male viewers. But, like, I think, it was just a very important break for her to have, because, like, it's the only thing, like, herself losing control is the only thing that's really going to put her on the back foot. And it's very interesting. Like, she seems terrified. Like, when she's in the coach with Viserys at the end, like, she seems, like, really quite shaken by her own actions, I think.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. I do just want to say about the scene generally, though, like, the way it was choreographed was so good. Like the overhead shots of all the like groups forming and breaking apart and I was like, I can't believe I'm watching this. This is like such brilliant artistry. I'm like unbelievably happy right now. So
did you see that the other Kingsguard pulled back Christian Cole as well? That I thought was really interesting. After
good.
Damon, well, after Damon was like, no, put his hand in there, the other two guards like pick him up basically and push him back, which I thought was
right.
Yeah, it was Harold Westerling.
No, I'm just saying you don't know if he's going there to help or not in that instant, right? Like he's a Kingsguard and like there's a knife drawn and like he should be moving towards the action, but they're like, oh no, not him. Like, so that kind of tells you that like, they're like, maybe he's not the right one to intervene here.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting, and I thought as well that the choreographing was so good. Just like you can see like everybody who goes for what in this scene. And I think that Rhaenyra, they said this in the after the episode, but I feel like I picked it up while I was watching as well, that like it almost seems like Rhaenyra almost wants her to cut her, in the sense that like it kind of just like shows physically without like having to see this go down in person, that like she's permanently scarred by Alicent because she's, I guess, quote unquote crazy in this moment. I think that this, Alicent in this scene is more like, do you not see the thing that I've been talking about for this whole time? You guys are all nuts. I can't deal with this anymore. But, I think that Rhaenyra kind of like wanted like to show that like it's not this, she's not the problem, Alicent is.
I was about to just bring that up as sort of maybe some sort of final, because I do want to point to Rhaenyra, and the whole time I was wondering, is she manipulating this whole situation? So that's the final outcome, which is a very smart move, and probably ultimately won her a lot of supporters in that hall. Maybe that's what tipped Damon over to Rhaenyra. Maybe that's what tipped the Valerians into supporting her, even though Rhaenyra has been undermining Valerian claims for this entire time. I felt like she took advantage of Alicent and her most vulnerable moment when her son just got his eyes poked out. Regardless of the actual situation on that, we don't have to. If you want, we can legislate that, but don't have to. But I think the Rhaenyra egged her on, essentially egged Alicent on and pushed her into trying to stab Jace, and then in turn stabbing her. And
sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I don't know that I take it that far, but I do think there's a really interesting moment when the boys are like, they called us bastards. And you can see Rhaenyra's awareness that this is about to elevate beyond politics has entered the room, and it frankly puts her in a better position. I don't necessarily know that she was goading or whatever, and it's hard to, in a situation like that, it's hard for me to be like, you shouldn't take advantage of whatever life raft you're thrown. But I do think that, that's when Alicent kind of starts to diminish, and like she starts to, like, everybody keeps looking at her, and she sort of tries to shrink herself down and be very quiet. She doesn't say anything. And before then, she's like very loud and performative. So yeah, I mean, I do think that I do think that the specter of politics is very clear after a certain point in that scene, and it benefits Rhaenyra way more than it benefits Alicent.
It's absolutely the right move for Rhaenyra. We've been talking a lot about how Rhaenyra hasn't been winning a lot of these sort of political battles. Here she is winning a very clear political battle against Alicent.
Yeah, I think that this scene, I think that that Rhaenyra really took advantage of this situation where, she, once she realizes that the kids were fighting because they called them bastards, they understood more. So, or she understood that like she had an opportunity here to kind of stop this like once and for all. And I think from there she was able to manipulate the situation into this. As far as like the whole situation goes, like I think this was discussed in the last DragonCast, but Alicent is kind of self-fulfilling her paranoia into that Otto is really started in her, to be like frank, that it's not just her here. But like that, that I think that the scene would not have gone down if Alicent wasn't worried that Rhaenyra had more power over her. And yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up, from my opinion. Anybody else on this scene?
Does Alicent not deserve punishment
For cutting the princess,
attempted
probably.
murder and drawing blood on the air? I mean, I don't know. Yes, she's the queen and Viserys' wife, and he's like a fucking bag of wet paper bag. But in history, what would be the precedent?
There's been a lot of hundreds of crimes committed already, and Viserys just letting.
Yeah, but this is like assault. I mean, I don't know.
Physically harming the heir to the throne.
This is something serious. Like, you don't get away with this. It's treason.
And it's not like a slap. It's like a knife that cut her and was planning to cut a child of hers.
I mean, he could hang her and it'd probably be justified. Or he could just send her back to Hightower and be like, I'm done with you. I mean, it obviously doesn't happen, but I mean, nothing happens.
Well, I mean, I guess I see it almost more metaphorically. Like, this is the second time now that we've seen Rhaenyra bleed for her children. And that's quite evocative. And the other part of it is, it kind of makes me wonder, effectively, which was the first blood drawn in the war? Was it Aemond or was it Rhaenyra?
Huh.
Aemond's kids. Yeah. Aemond's eyes were poked out. Should Luke be executed for that?
Well, not if it's in self-defense. Obviously not. I mean, and as you said, they're kids, so nothing matters because they're kids, apparently. But I mean, this is clearly beyond the pale.
The problem I have with this is that, obviously, the kids shouldn't have to be forced to speak up, and Damon obviously isn't really defending them in this case. But the whole reason why Aemon has an eye out is because he took Vhagar, Baela, and Rhaena's mom's dragon. And so, that's what they were looking for the whole time. And once Aemond tells them that, I got a dragon out of this, I think it's punishment enough, everybody's kind of like, oh, okay. So...
But again, that just addresses the kids. That doesn't address what Alicent did.
No, but I don't know if she... Well...
I mean, I don't know, because it looks like in the next episode, maybe, Viserys just kind of falls off the cliff here.
Yeah.
But...
I think the point is...
But he should have probably done something to censure her. I don't know. Sanctions on the high towers. I don't know.
Maybe he should have done something when Rhaenyra had 3 bastard sons.
If you've never done anything in response to anything, then it's you can see the pile of problems that he would be like, okay, I would have to punish this person for that and this person for that, and it's Viserys. So obvious. I mean, I agree. Probably sending her away to the high tower would be a decent punishment, but we have to bury that. He's the matter's over. We're not dealing with this anymore. It
just needs a nap.
How many times
and he can't have Otto at court serving her and then not have Alicent there. It'd be a little odd, and Otto would not want that. And
Otto is back
constantly
already.
Bring it up, right? So it's just and Otto just came back too. It's imagine if you started a new job and then where they beg to have you, then they just fired you for office politics. That
it's so hard to hire a new hand.
You're clearly the irreplaceable employee, right? It's just it doesn't work that way.
How many times has Viserys sent Damon away? He just
could Damon be hand?
Never.
That would be you.
Yes, and it's just it just goes back to what we were talking about last episode when Strong resigned. It's just he should use the opportunity for a new hand to just prepare the runway for his chosen successor, but he's not doing that because, like Michal said, he's just he doesn't have the bandwidth to do that. He's been so permissive up to this point where it would be kind of unfair to punish any individual person. I do think drawing the blood of the heir to the throne is in public is rather beyond the pale. But to encourage her to become a nun or go back to the high tower or whatever. But yeah, if that doesn't work with Otto in the picture, and
send her to the wall.
So next stop, crazy civil war.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I feel no matter what Viserys does in this situation, it's not going to be good. But a king, he's basically the higher authority here. Him punishing his queen, in a public sense isn't a good look, and for him sense it's not good because then his wife's just gonna be mad at him for the rest of his life.
Which isn't a lot.
And also just in next episode he will have Vymon's tongue out for calling the strong boys bastards in the throne room, right? Like during an audience, right? He'll it's like that he hears them out, but then because he said the word bastard, he's he has his tongue out, and then that's the one thing Viserys will ever do, right?
Are you guys suggesting that this world is unjust?
I mean, it could all be unjust, and he could be a shit king that doesn't do anything, but I don't think that means that, he should just not do anything here. It wouldn't be fair. I mean, I think here, this is a situation that absolutely commands, it's a red line, whatever you want to call it. It commands a response. He has to do something, maybe to help, bring quote-unquote justice to both sides, but he definitely has to do something to Alicent, and he doesn't.
I agree, Adam. There's obviously all these extenuating circumstances as to why it's not happening, but I
guess this new dragon
that's
could
bothered me. Like I've said in previous episodes, what's kind of bothered me is that we don't see people in the orbit of the court talking about how these high towers are, acting above themselves, right? How all these other houses are just taking it, and it's just I would have expected at least the usual suspects, right? Corlys to talk about that. Damon has his little quip to Otto about how at the wake, right? About how he's still a leeching off of his brother, but at the same time, Martin is fond of putting these epic one-liners in the mouths of the most hypocritical people to be saying them. So
I think we can just conclude from this that we need a fair and independent judicial system, and I think that'll solve everything. So moving on. Next we have, I believe it's we first have Alicent and Otto kind of reconvening, and him kind of congratulating her, and it seems like she's full of shock, at least in my opinion. That I think that she thinks that she's totally in the wrong and needs to repent her sins, and that she's really fucked everything up. It's a really short scene. What do you guys think?
All the time, hot was Snake. There's no getting around that.
Oh yeah.
She starts picking her cuticles again.
Oh, I didn't miss that.
I didn't see that. Damn it.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and look at that scene.
He's really he is a problem. She's afraid of his judgment, to the point that she fully regresses. And then it might have this would have been a situation where harsh judgment would have been warranted, but instead he flips the script and is no, I'm proud of you for being completely fucking unhinged. It's a mind fuck.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Of course he's proud.
Yeah. And this, going back to what we were discussing before, this kind of reinforces how the male actors in this scene are really the ones that are causing the most problems with everything. It's not really, I feel like Alicent's kind of been formed by Otto.
Well, I mean,
she still has
agency.
Yeah, but no. I'm not saying that it's all her.
Yeah, I mean, she fucks up a lot. I mean, it's he incepted her and kind of fucked up what we saw as a young Alicent that did seem virtuous and just kind of slowly was getting beat down by this whole situation, and his seed kind of twisted her, but that's still on her. I mean, the green shit is it comes from him, but it doesn't happen without her.
I'm so sorry I lied about losing my virginity to you. I guess we have to make a dynastic crisis now.
I don't have time to relitigate that.
I don't know, Alicent. Kristen still doesn't want you, so what are you doing wrong?
I think that Alicent definitely has agency. I don't think she has agency anytime her father is in the room. I
think it's fair that she regresses as a character to a degree to a state that is her accepting his authority, which is very weird for this woman that she'll challenge Viserys at this point. She's not afraid to say her piece when it comes to defending her children or opinions she has. I mean, when we're in the small council, in episode 6, we get that from her when she's like, when she talks about Damon leaving the Stepstones and, how it's his fault or whatever.
I do think it's fair to say that her deepest insecurities are from him. Like he is sort of like the source of her deepest wounds. But still, like, yeah, it's fair to say that, she's become, as she has matured into an adult woman, she has become her own worst enemy, like in the way that a lot of children do. They take like the wounds that their parents gave them and just sort of keep repeating it over and over.
Yeah, or other adults. And it's like, yep, well, now I have to do this shit. And it's like, no, you really don't, but okay.
And your kid and their kids have to be subjected to that, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Moving on to it's like a cycle maybe. But anyways, the scene. Let's just go to the end scene, sticking with Alicent with Corlys, and then we can go all into Rainier and Rhaenyra. So we have Corlys talking to Alicent, and she basically says like, "Oh no, like it's totally fine what you did. I know I'll appreciate it later." And we get them riding off on the boat together. I feel like Corlys is the only one so far who, we don't have enough backstory with him, I bet, but like he's the only one I just like absolutely hate in this whole thing.
You mean Laris? Laris?
Oh my god. Laris. Yeah, sorry, my bad.
I assume that's who you meant.
I was so lost. I was like, what?
Strong opinions
Corlys
there.
is taking a nap.
What did Corlys do?
There's too many lists.
Yeah, I won't disagree. He went from like appealingly sly to like, holy shit, I'm terrified every time this guy's on screen. Like, I don't think there's any moral compass here whatsoever.
He kind of feels like Tyrion, kind of in a Dance with Dragons. It's just like, buddy, you are fucked up.
Is this guy going to grow a mustache? Because he's going to start toiling it very soon.
Yeah.
He's like an evil puppy in that scene. He just cuddles up to her and he's like, I've been your friend. I can do this for you. She is so repulsed and grossed out. And
he just wants a treat.
Yeah, basically.
You want me to murder this child for you?
Yeah, I feel like when she says that she has, she basically throws him a bone where he wants to make good on, plucking the kid's eye out, and she says no, and then very quickly it's like, but I've observed, that you've been a loyal ally, and I almost feel like that might be strategic, but I also think it's fear-based, where it's like I need to not make an enemy of this man.
That's a survival mechanism. Like, don't do the thing, but hey, you're doing a great job, but please don't do anything without talking to me.
Well, I mean, like, she's his accessory after the fact for the treason and kinslaying, so I don't think that's unwarranted.
Do you think he wants to fuck her?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure if he's sexual in any way. He's just like...
I think he gets off on snaking.
I thought that... I felt like he's more of a Baelish, but like without like the mommy / lady issues.
And like less smooth and more sadistic?
Yeah.
Or, like he trades on being an other, on being kind of like viewed as weak instead of as being like liked with the silver tongue.
He almost feels like a Lena Tyrell. Everybody's
Helena
name.
Tyrell?
Lena Tyrell wannabe.
Who's this fake fan hosting our podcast?
I don't know what's wrong with me.
Lack of knowledge.
Guys,
House Fanister is my favorite.
We need like a podcast with pictures, because I'm constantly just like that guy and that girl.
Like all of these people are hard from the book, and we don't have as much experience. And seeing them on the screen, I think, helps. Like the dragons for me, I'm like, fuck, which dragon is that? By the way, like we saw Sunfire here, I think, and I was like, oh, is that Sunfire? It must be, but it was kind of underwhelming.
I can't tell you.
Right, nothing that says like this is the most gorgeous, drop-dead gorgeous dragon to ever exist.
Yeah, I thought Sunfire was going to be this reveal. It's going to fucking like shine like Mithril or some shit, And I was like, was that Cyrax? Oh, no. This is the kids going back home. So that must be Sunfire.
We still have the kind of blue midnight filter over everything, I felt like.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is odd how like Miss Arya has had barely any screen time since episode 4, and like like there's already been a lot of depth added to her character, whereas Clubfoot is kind of the opposite. But I'm willing to wait until season 2 to like kind of like wait for more depth of his character. Kind of the point is that no one knows what he wants, but
we need a few good monologues out of him.
Right.
This is my backstory. They teased me when I was a child.
Chaos is a shovel.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
We do have a lot of characters who we know just not just what, but why, and it's reasonable that there's a limit on how many whys they can put in one season.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get
And
some flashbacks.
who knows how we'll feel at the end of the series if they never explain his actions, just like they don't in the book. So
Clear bad. All right, now let's move over to Rhaenyra and Laenor. They basically have a discussion about how he wants to kind of be a better husband, and she almost kind of looks disappointed at this, and then that kind of plays into the next scene where they plot Laenor's death.
Oh, this was amazing. This is amazing. He's like, I've really been fucking up, and those are my kids, and I'm gonna be the best, king consort, and I swear. And the next thing she's like, so uncle, can we get rid of him?
Look, the way I read this is just that come to Jesus speech came like 8 years too late.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think he's been somewhat attentive, and like we see him.
I think he's sincere.
Right?
But he spent 10 years. Look, I think he's sincere the entire time adult Laenor has been on screen. But like everything else, it's just 10 years of everything adding up, and just like old patterns reasserting themselves. Major theme of this show, right? And it's just like whether I believe he's sincere in that moment, like a lot of people who make these kinds of speeches are. But if only that came like 8 years before.
Right, and it comes off the heels of his sister's death. So how long is that going to last?
It's a broken gift that he's offering her, right? Because on the one hand, it's what she needs from him, which is a supportive, stalwart partner who's going to stand up and give legitimacy to her children. On the other hand, it means that he's going to have to sacrifice any chance of real happiness that he might find, and she's going to know that. Like their marriage is going to be even more of a sham. It's just going to be a painful smile. And also I think she's just it's just it's a bad situation, and I was fully on board with her and Damon ascending to the evil couple by just ruthlessly getting him out of the way. But I think it was the right choice, not to skip super far ahead, not necessarily for like the optical reasons, but because I think like 3 major deaths in 2 episodes is I think there's a fatigue to that. So I think giving a switcheroo where he gets to just leave and be written out of the show, I think is preferable.
I guess that was my question when I saw this, and they were kind of plotting, and she's like, yeah, so we should get together. But he's like, you have a husband. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're making her the one who's like, murder my husband. I was like, hey, we're going to have to discuss this. What happens? And then that changed. So if she had just said, like, if they just had gone through with the murder, what would that have, I don't know, how would that have made her look?
Yeah, I had, so at first I thought that, I'm just going to continue to embarrass myself here. What's Laenor's lover's name?
Corey. I thought that he, sneakily decided not to kill him and have him just go away with him instead. But when I, watched it again and I saw that Damon killed that one guy, I was like, oh no, it was all together. They plotted this, it seemed like.
Alas, Sir Redshirt.
Yeah, I didn't understand it until the boat, and then I rewound and I had to figure out what was going on. So it wasn't obvious at first to me, anyway. Yeah,
everything they're saying has a double meaning, where they're talking about everyone will fear us, but we'll know the truth.
Yeah, I feel terrible for Rhaenys and Corlys at this point, especially just seeing Rhaenys just break down.
And the
with
poor
her.
bastard that Damon murdered.
Yeah, the random innocent man
gonna
that
say.
just got killed in his place.
I was going to say,
Who has a
Richard.
better story but the man in the stairwell?
is this any less evil? Is this any less evil? They just murdered some rando for no
For me,
reason.
it's less evil, or not less evil. Sorry, it's just the same amount of evil, and it's dumber. So
Yeah, it feels like I try not to think of the logistics of it too closely because the plan starts to fall apart very quickly. I would not be surprised if Rhaenys and Corlys figure shit out and then just keep that to themselves.
that'd be horrible.
Well,
God.
it really makes me wonder, how are they on Team Black at this point? It's like, is it just because
Right.
of girls? Like,
I
they
think it
don't
has to
like
be just
Damon, they don't like Rhaenyra very much. Like, sure, they're not big fans, but like, you would think that they would be neutral at least.
No, they did have that one shot at the end of the fight scene where like you kind of see Rhaenyra and Damon and the kids, and then you see Corlys next to them, and I was like, "Huh, that's kind of weird." Given everything, but they wanted to get like a nice shot of like the two sides of things, I thought. But yeah, that was my one question about like the end of this episode, and my other was, this might be kind of silly, but like what did Rhaenyra do with his dragon? Did he follow him? Did he just like the dragon didn't do anything about that? Like he's just gonna get a new person at this point?
That's the part about this that doesn't work the most for me. Especially if like there's danger coming and all that. Now you're at the beginning of last episode, I guess. House Valerian has 3 dragons that when you count Damon with they're fairly powerful, and now I don't know. Like
You could rationalize it and say that, they could just give Sea Smoke to Rhaena, or when Damon and Rhaenyra have a child, maybe they can inherit Sea Smoke. It does raise some like weird like dragon handling questions of like if the dragon doesn't know if the rider is alive or dead. Can someone
is the
ride the
connection
dragon?
still there?
Yeah, I'm more upset because it implies that maybe we don't get Adam, and I want Adam in this show.
It implies that we don't get Adam?
What?
To me, it's like
How does it imply that?
Well, I mean,
They would bring Rhaenyra back for that.
Yeah, either they have to bring him back for, I don't know. The logistics of it feel dumb. Here's the thing: if it ever comes out that he's alive, that looks worse. That's like, oh, so you abandoned your trueborn children? Are you telling me to go off with your lover to Essos? But they're for sure your children, right?
And he abandoned his dragon. I mean, this is the lover's pull is powerful. I
think
I think
the
the
point is
dragon's
that there aren't good
technically-
answers here, right? Like somebody's going to suffer, and frankly, what Damon and Rhaenyra are kind of doing is kicking it down the road
line,
to their sons, who have now lost 2 dads in the course of like a month. If
They
that
should have
long.
flown off on Sea Smoke.
The
No,
thing
that's
that
a bit of a
feels-
tell, though. It's pretty
yeah,
easy to
'cause
find.
Who is
something.
this guy?
Well, at the very least, it's harder to find a person on the dragon because, of course, if you're flying over someone, it's not very easy to tell that there's a rider on it. The bigger issue to me is that, like, I don't know, if it's ever found out, it just implies that they're not his kids for sure.
I actually think that's out of the bottle now. I think that they've accepted that everyone knows, and we're just going to continue to pretend, and that's kind of the point of Viserys' edict, because it's like it doesn't matter if you know, you're explicitly forbidden from speaking about it, and we're all just going to pretend that this isn't the case, which ties in obviously to Corlys and Rhaenys' argument too.
Yeah, to go back to a previous point, I think that's how they're still tied to the Blacks, other than Bela and Rhaena, is that for Corlys, at least, it's less important if the children are legitimate. It's the name that actually matters to him. Rhaenys is kind of the square peg in that she doesn't seem to give a damn either way.
It seems like she definitely does give a damn. It's just that she doesn't like the kids. Or not like them. She is upset at the idea that they're not her grandchildren.
Maybe the betrothal between the twins and the Strong Boys will smooth her over with that, because it's always struck me as a little odd that they would put all of their eggs in, or
The
that like
Valerian
Rhaenyra,
basket.
right?
Mm.
But the but yeah, like if she wants it to go through Bela, and like that is a way of making it happen, of like just like tacitly acknowledging that, but and still like keeping it within her blood, which Rhaenys is concerned about. But yeah. Another thing that's kind of bothered me about the dragons is that like from aging up the kids, the like if next episode we're jumping forward 10 years in time when shit really starts to go down, and like the kid actors have reached their final forms, so to speak, the it's just like what's to stop Rhaena from claiming one of the dragons on Dragonstone that the dragon seeds would otherwise claim, right? Instead of just like praying over her eggs for years and years.
Yeah, is it I'm forgetting the timeline. I think it's she gets sent away before the war gets to that point. Is that correct?
She goes to the Vale, but I'm not sure. But like even in the intervening 10 years, if she's that insecure about not being a dragon rider, which I completely understand, considering like now, like we'll see how Rhaenyra is as a stepmother if they ever want to do that. But like just like Damon's just like completely neglectful unless it's about dragons. It seems like just like even within the intervening 10 years, just to get his approval, she'd consider that.
Yeah, sea smoke or a wild dragon or somebody.
They're not going to go there, obviously, but because it would change the story way too much. But still,
could Rhaenys proposal have worked or even been allowed? I mean, Corlys makes the point we took this earlier, where he says, people remember the names or whatever. But if he said, yeah, I'll name Damon's daughters, as the heirs. Like, don't you think, especially with all this strong shit going on, like the king would be like, what the fuck? Like I don't even know if he'd allow it.
Yeah, I feel like it probably would have not gone down well, and I think that Corlys, in his age, he's a little bit more like Viserys here in that he doesn't want to like stir up things. But where I feel like Rhaenys, like if there ever was a time to like try to do this is the time. It wouldn't make sense later on, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. I
Also,
don't think it's a bad idea. I just don't know if it would actually play.
Yeah. Also, how old, if they have Adam and Alan, how old are, they're like what, 15 in the books or in the book, but stands to reason that they could be like 20 in the showtime. So that's kind of his response to like the Strong Boys, right? Of just like going out and having these bastards of his own that he's it seems like if Rhaenyra ever ascended the throne, it might have been on his short list to just like get them legitimized of political favors, to say, I've turned a blind eye to your bastards, please legitimize mine, and we'll all be happy. Because off the top of my head, if I recall correctly, in the book, he wasn't very hot on Luke inheriting Driftmark. He wasn't like frothing at the mouth about bastards, but he also wasn't very interested in having Luke get Driftmark. So
yeah, I mean, I think practically you want a Valyrian, and he does make that point of if they inherit, they'll keep the Valyrian name, or they're going to have the Valyrian name and all that. But I do think, yeah, like they're in the royal line, it might be better to kind of go another way.
Rainier ruined his line and his son. Then,
Huh?
The problem is, if it would have been better if Rhaenyra just never married,
Right?
and then Lena's children get
Automatically, yeah.
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 That would have been the best solution.
Unfortunately, the misogyny and the homophobia of the society sort of gets in the way over and over. Can we talk about the Valyrian wedding?
Yes.
A new nerd wedding just emerged.
Satanic ritual.
Vegas is already setting up.
Oh, we're gonna get so many diseases this way.
Why?
The line, "we were always meant to burn together," is metal as hell. And romantic as hell. I love it.
Oh my god, the look on their faces as they got married was just like, it just, it was so wrong, but it felt so right.
Did anyone see the screenshot of the kids watching?
Yes!
I did not. Please share.
The Maester was really into it, though.
The Maester who has his, for some reason, has his armor of Luke. Like, who is this? Who's this guy?
Oh my god.
Incest fan.
I just love how the kids are like, all right, cool, some cousins I've never met. Okay, now we're brother and sister. And they had a distinct, like, this is not appropriate for my age group. Like, look at them watching the, like, slicing and dicing and kissing and blood.
Yeah, they were just like, our parents are dead, our fake parent is dead, and now you guys are getting married, and this all feels a little wrong here. And we're kids, and we don't know how to process this.
Gotta parent trap our way out of this situation, but I'm not sure there's a big enough trap for it. Oh, those poor children.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out how soon this was after the events of Rhaenyra happened, but it seemed relatively quickly. Maybe a little too soon. But I guess, I didn't realize, like, next week we're getting, like, a whole 10-year jump, so it could be anywhere in there.
I want to commend the kid actors, especially the actor for Aemond. For this episode, he did awesome. I'm also going to be sorry to miss Griffith from our lives. Griffith Aegon from our lives. I didn't know he was played by David Tennant's son, apparently.
Oh my god, no way. This really brings, like, Doctor Who into all of this, like, really a lot. Well, hopefully we don't get too timey-wimey in the future. I guess that's his last episode, then. Alright, do we have any last thoughts about the episode, or should I close out?
Farewell to this version of the children, and I think all the adults are sticking around, though.
Yep.
Yes, we are keeping the adults.
Yeah, I'm having trouble, like, how old is Damon in all of this?
He's a vampire. He doesn't age.
How old he wants to be.
It's showtime. He's got to be at least 40, right?
He's
Because Rhaenyra
49.
is pushing.
He's 49 when he dies.
Right, and then in the book, Rhaenyra is 23 when this happens, but she's pushing 30 in the showtime.
Yeah, she's gotta be about late 20s for sure.
Yeah, because, like, in the first episode, he looked like he was Viserys' age, and then, the next two, he looked like he was much younger, and then, it's all with the hair, really, and then, he looks like he's back to the same age he was when we first started this whole thing, so I'm just like...
He said Damon's a fine wine.
Yeah. I noticed that, like, we're like...
On the one hand, Damon is the one that actually looks inbred, but on the other hand, he's seemed to be aging more gracefully, so...
He just looks like a living, like, wax museum character. It just doesn't change.
As Greg said, he's so ugly, he's hot. And I guess that works for me.
I think that's fair. Sorry. I think in order to be hot, you have to be at least a little bit ugly.
Yes. Makes sense. All right, then I'm going to close out this episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and thank you all for doing this with me. You can find Vassals of Kingsgrave, pretty much everywhere on the social medias, and if you want to chat with us about the show, about the books, anything Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire related, and other things. We talk about a lot of different things on this Discord here, and we have lots of different threads and lots of people to talk about things with. Find us on the Discord, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye, y'all.
Dracarys!
Dracarys!
Dracarys!